Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. This happened about 10 years ago. I was attending a really crappy university. I was working 4 nights a week, and I could afford little more than dinner each day. Rent and gas money really killed me financially. I really needed a job to survive, and this all happened before I was working. It was summer of my second year. It was one of the hottest days of the year, and on days like that, I always went to study on campus to enjoy the free aircon. In the library, they have a bulletin board where anyone can post any personal advertisements. I often check the board because sometimes you could pick up some easy work. For example, high school students looking for a tutor. Other times, there would be interesting advertisements too, like, "Study a foreign language with me. I like the sense of community." And that sort. When I approached the board that day, I saw the following advertisement. Cleaner wanted to help clean a room, 5,000 yen per half day. Please contact Tanaka. This was some good timing because I had just taken a test and I was about to have a week off. 5,000 yen was a lot to me. It's about $45. That would get me back to my hometown for a couple of days, I thought. And as soon as I got back to my dorm, I immediately called the number provided. "Hi, I'd like to apply for the cleaning job you posted." The voice on the other end of the line responded. It sounded slightly bewildered. Oh, right. What days can you work?" I told him that I would work the full amount advertised. "All right. Well, you can start at 9 a.m. next Tuesday." I agreed, and he gave me the address. It sounded like a residential address, and I guessed by his voice that he was a man in his 30s. He sounded a little sick over the phone. My first day of work arrived. The morning was hot, but the sky was free of clouds. When I arrived at Mr. Tanaka's house, I felt the breeze of his aircon. I was worried that I was going to be working without one. I arrived 10 minutes early at 8:50. I rang the doorbell, and a man came and answered it. "Right on time. Come on in," he said. He was a bit awkward, not one for chatting, and he wouldn't look me in the eyes when we spoke. I took my shoes off, and I followed him into the house. After we introduced ourselves to one another, he explained what he needed. It was pretty easy stuff: help with moving heavy things, trips to the garbage dump, and some other light cleaning work. I was shocked by the things he was throwing away. It may have been trash to him, but to a student like me, they were treasures. He must have seen me admiring these things because he said, "If you want to keep anything, it's yours." So, I sorted some things into a keep pile, and I can't remember exactly what they were. I think there were a couple of games, some books, maybe a dirty magazine too. We were cleaning the room at a decent pace, and I was kind of enjoying it, to be honest. And before long, his room started to look very good. "Maybe we will call it a day here." I felt him suddenly look my way. It looked like he was pretending to think about it a bit longer, and then he said, "Yes, that's enough for today." Because I had worked a lot longer than half a day, he doubled my pay. I couldn't believe my luck, and then he said, "Are you free tomorrow for half a day?" I was over the moon to get another chance to make some easy money, so I agreed. I got on my bike with all of my cool new stuff, and I told him that I was looking forward to working with him tomorrow morning. When I got to his place, I found the door open. I craned my head around the door and then I called out. He asked me to come in, and he was grinning when I walked in. "I have your money here. I'll leave it in this envelope over here." He grabbed me by my hand and then led me to another room. This was weird. His whole attitude seemed different. In this room, there was a walk-in closet. There was a heavy-looking suitcase, like one for travel. "This thing is so heavy. I need you to help me move it." "This is how it's going to work. I'll push from behind, and on my signal, I want you to pull as hard as you can. Is that all right?" He hopped over the suitcase and went into the walk-in closet. I couldn't see him beyond all the jackets, shirts, and etc. hanging up in there. And after a while, Mr. Tanaka shouted, "Pull." And as per his instructions, I pulled the suitcase as hard as I could. It weighed so much. What the hell did he have in there? I wondered. It must have weighed about 60 kilograms, and it was moving little by little, dragging slowly across the wooden floor. There was a clattering sound, and suddenly the suitcase felt incredibly light. "Mr. Tanaka?" I called out over and over, but there was no response. What the hell was this? Some kind of game he was playing? I didn't understand. There was still that rattling sound, but it had gradually went silent. 10 seconds or so passed, and I couldn't take it anymore. I pushed the shirts and jackets aside, and I will never forget what I saw. I saw Mr. Tanaka in the closet hanging from his neck. He must have been sitting or crouching on the suitcase, and I pulled away, and he was suspended on the clothes rail in there. I ran over to help, tried my best to pull the rope from around his neck, but it wouldn't budge. My mind raced with panic thoughts. Then one clear one came to me. I need something sharp to cut the rope. Mr. Tanaka wasn't moving. This was really bad. The rope was way too thick for scissors to be of any help, and I had no choice. I had to try and get a neighbor to help. The police and the ambulance services arrived, and I was interviewed by the police at the scene. My parents traveled up, and when they arrived, I remember that I just broke down and I bawled my eyes out. Mr. Tanaka was taken away in an ambulance. He lived through the night, but passed away in the morning of the next day. I couldn't save him in time. The least that I could do for him was to finish cleaning. I thought that it would help me to do that too. It was so much to process. I made sure that his apartment looked good though. I had some strange compulsion to finish his final request. I went to take my payment, and inside the envelope was a note as well as the money that he had promised me. The note revealed that he had been laid off. His company had been looking to make cutbacks, and shortly after, he found out that his wife had been cheating on him with another man. His debt and loan seemed insurmountable to him, which is why he decided to end things. At the end of his note, he apologized to me for all the trouble that he had caused me. He explained how he needed assistance to go through with it, and the cleaning job was just a ruse to get me to help. I showed this note to the police, and it put me in the clear. The police even let me keep the money. And about a week went by, and Mr. Tanaka's sister got in touch. He had long been estranged from her. She revealed a certain truth that hasn't sat well with me, and I wish she didn't tell me. Mr. Tanaka was a believer in a certain dangerous cult-like religion. In that religion, the act of taking one's life is considered a terrible sin and is prohibited. If you did that, then you would be condemned to hell for all eternity. So he couldn't take his own life, and that's why he needed me. I was given 100,000 yen, or $900 from his family and his estate for all the trouble that he had caused me. According to Mr. Tanaka's interpretation, am I now a murderer? I wonder if I would go to hell for killing someone for 115,000 yen. Share the story if you feel compelled to, and thank you so much for listening.
This terrible thing happened about 15 years ago. I was 20 years old and living alone. I came home from work, checked the post as I usually do, and found a sealed letter. It was a blank envelope. Inside there were 2 tickets to a concert and a letter. A love letter. The writer's feelings for me were quite clear. It went something like this. "Let's meet at the concert. I'll keep my identity hidden until we meet. I'm sure you'll be surprised. I'm someone you know." I had a boyfriend at the time, and I had no idea who wrote that. I thought for a moment that I won a competition or something. I remembered that I entered one. But then I remembered that I had entered that competition only this morning, so there's no way that the tickets could be in my letterbox by the evening. Something wasn't right, so I didn't go to the concert. I thought that if it truly is someone that I know, as soon as they reveal themselves to me, then I'd apologize, and I'm sure if they are a decent and kind person, they'd understand my caution. The day after the concert, I found a threatening-looking letter stuffed into my letterbox. "Why didn't you come? You idiot! Don't pretend like you aren't interested. This is BS." The first letter was gentlemanly in a sense, but this was the complete opposite. Back then, mobile phones weren't so common. As soon as I returned home from work, the moment I closed my front door, my home phone rang. I picked it up, and the other party hung up. This happened often. I didn't get a call or letter every single day. It was irregular. I would get 1 a week, and then the next week I'd get 3 or 4. This kind of thing went on for about 3 months. It was so creepy that I ended up moving away. Finally, peace. Well, that's what I thought. Until 1 month after I moved into a new place, the same thing started again. I didn't get a call this time, but I found another blank envelope in my letterbox. There was no sender's address or name, so it must have been posted by hand. When I saw this, it was clear to me that I had a stalker, and the stalker had found my new home. I was really scared. I took the letter to the police station and spoke to an officer. Ignoring the other party is the most effective thing you can do. As soon as he realizes that he's being ignored, he will stop. This advice doesn't solve anything, I thought. Then the officer said, "Look, women who live alone often get lonely, right? And sometimes single ladies have a tendency to allow harmless antics to get blown out of proportion. He laughed and thought I was delusional. Back in those days, the word stalker wasn't widely recognized in Japan. The laws in place aren't what they are today. I felt so sad that he didn't try to help me. He didn't back me up. It was like he took the stalker's side. I'll just move again, I thought. But around that time, my boyfriend and I were talking about marriage. So I moved back to my parents' house while we talked it over. My parents' home was in the same prefecture, but it was way out into the sticks, so commuting to work was a real pain. But I thought, at least I'd be rid of the stalker. I was wrong. Carnage and bloodshed were right around the corner for me. I finished work and headed towards the train station. On the way, a man stood blocking my way. When I tried to go one way, he stood in that way, and when I tried to go the other, he blocked me again. He towered over me. He was peering down at me. His jaw hung open, and he was breathing through his mouth. It's him. It's my stalker, I thought. But I didn't recognize him. "Why didn't you come?" he muttered. For a moment, I didn't know what the hell he was talking about, and then suddenly I remembered. The tickets. I knew he wanted an answer, but I couldn't say a word. It was rush hour. People were all around us. I wasn't terrified, but I was scared. It was risky. So I said in quite a loud voice, for the benefit of those around, "Excuse me, please let me pass." As I said this, people all around looked in our direction. But then my stalker did something unexpected. He turned and ran into the busy street. Right before my eyes, he was hit by a car. You may think this is quite cold-hearted, but I just thought as I rode the train home, that is not my fault. I was kind of happy that the harassment might be all over. In case you're wondering, he lived. However, one of the stalker's colleagues saw this all unfold. This guy said that it looked as if we were having a lover's quarrel. And when the stalker got hit by the car, he said that I pretended not to notice, or feigned ignorance and just walked off. This rumor was spread around by the stalker's co-worker. Every year my company and other companies in the same line of work have a sports day for a bit of friendly competition. I remember talking to a few people, but there were so many people I can't remember who I spoke to very well. Apparently this is how I met my stalker. I'm usually really good at remembering faces, but I didn't recognize him. I found out that he came to my company a few times a week. I work in the personnel department, hidden away in a small office, so I don't often see people other than the ones I immediately work with. Yet the rumors about me grew. They said that we often met at work. Of course, I denied all these false allegations and stated the fact that I was the victim of stalking, but I wasn't convinced that anyone believed me. Another shock was in store for me. I was dumped. Although my boyfriend and I weren't officially engaged, we had set up a date for me to be introduced to his parents in his hometown, and at that point, we would officially announce our plans to engage. The rumors had reached their ears before I had arrived. As I said before, the suffering caused by stalkers wasn't well documented in Japan. They said to me when I met them, "You must have given this guy some sign that he had a chance with you. Somehow, you must have given him the wrong idea. You caused his actions. Are you sure there wasn't anything going on between you two?" With this doubt and distrust imposed upon me, my boyfriend was persuaded by his parents to end our relationship. I couldn't believe it. I wanted to escape. I wanted a fresh start, so I resigned from my job as well. It has been over 20 years since this has happened, and the wounds caused by the stalker still feel fresh. My desire to work hard at the assumption that I would eventually get married and spend my life with a husband has died. I came to the conclusion that I would end up alone. So far, I'm right.
This happened pretty recently, and because of it, I will be quitting my job at the end of the month. My current job is to deliver papers to homes in the mountains, basically in the middle of nowhere. It's tough because I have to start at midnight in order to get all my deliveries done. It doesn't exactly pay well, but it's good to be working, especially when you are young. It's nice to have your own money, right? Anyway, like I said, I start at midnight and I don't finish until the sun comes up, and sometimes in the darker months, the sun doesn't come up at all. Being out in the mountains alone at night can be pretty spooky, as I'm sure you can imagine. And I want to share my recent scary experience with you. It happened this winter, and I had gotten used to the rhythm of deliveries by that point. It was around winter time that the newspaper company that I worked for was trying to expand their business, and this meant that there would be more work for me. I was excited at first to earn a bit more money, but over time, it became more and more time-consuming. Basically, a subscription would come in, and then it would be down to me to deliver it to the customer. So, I'm usually riding my bike around with a map because signal is a no-go in the mountains. I don't mean a push bike, I mean a really low-quality motorbike. The people who buy these subscriptions have an amazing ability to be unfindable. It never felt as if it was straightforward. And I had one of these subscription jobs on that winter's night. I knew the address, and I knew it wasn't going to be an easy night. There were a few roads through forest areas, and even worse was the fact that some of the roads were very narrow. I could barely ride my bike along them. I set off and rode my bike right up to the point where the narrow roads began. And since it was winter, I figured that it would be safer if I just parked the bike up and then deliver the subscription on foot. There was a footpath after all. There was a post box at the end of the customer's drive, and it was a short distance from the house. I started down the slope road towards the post box, and then I froze in my tracks. I heard the sound of a dog barking. No, not just one dog. It sounded like there were at least two. I thought not much of it, and then I approached the post box with the subscription in hand. It was still pitch black out at this point, despite it being the early morning. And as I approached, I noticed a light go on at the front door. There was an old lady that stood outside under the porch. Seeing her gave me a fright, and I thought to myself, "Oh, wow, someone's super eager for the morning paper." I figured that since she was out, I could literally just put the subscription in her hand, so I approached her. I stopped when she started yelling at me. "Stop right there! What do you think you're doing?" "I'm delivering the newspaper and your subscription." The boss made us wear a uniform, and we had to have this ID card around our neck as some customers, especially ones like this who live in remote areas, can be skeptic of people that they don't know, stranger danger and all. So I raised my ID badge, as I assumed that she could see me pretty well. "You expect me to believe that? You think that's proof?" She screamed at me. I could see the dogs, especially the whites of their teeth. The old woman then pulled out a pair of long gardening shears or scissors from behind her back and then pointed them at me. I instinctively backed away, and I just tried to remain as calm as possible. I wonder if she was suffering from some kind of disease, maybe something like dementia. If she came at me with those long scissors, I planned on pushing them away or trying to kick her. I practiced full contact karate at that point in my life. However, she was an old lady, and I don't know if I could have done that to her. I just hoped that it wouldn't come to that. I just said, "Well, then I will just leave this here and I'd be on my way." And with that, I turned to leave. I didn't get paid enough to deal with this rubbish. I upped my pace as the old lady was still shouting at me. She sounded as if she was getting riled up. The dogs were really barking at me now, and I turned to look over my shoulder, and I saw her let go of their leashes. She was walking towards me, slashing the scissors through the air. She wasn't making any sense. I couldn't make out a single word that she was shouting. It was time to run. I raced up the hill as I heard the dogs chasing me, and I couldn't believe it. She literally released the hounds on me. I ran up the hill as fast as I could. I needed to get back to my motorbike. I got back to the bike, kicked out the stand and hopped on, and I started the engine, and then had a look behind me. I saw the tips of the dogs' heads coming up the slope and pulled away without looking back again. It was really scary, and to be honest, I think myself incredibly lucky to get out of there without any injuries. Those dogs wanted to bite me, I could tell, and that old woman looked as if she would have joined in too. I imagined her plunging those large gardening scissors into my gut, and I shudder at the thought now. After I delivered all my newspapers and subscriptions, I spoke with my boss and I told him about my close call. He decided that he would make contact with a customer to see what was going on, and I could already imagine that he was going to take the side of the customer. It was just the kind of guy he was. However, he found out that the customer's phone number was no longer in use. He decided to go out there himself and speak to the customer in person. I told him to watch out for the dogs, and he said that he would let me know how it went when I came into work next. I spoke to him the next day, and he told me that he went out there to meet the customer, but he found nothing but an abandoned house. He then made contact with a subscription company to find out why someone would want to send a subscription to an empty abandoned house. It was at this point that we learned that the subscription company had fudged the numbers to make our company take their business. They wanted it to look like they had more customers than they did. They had a quota to fill, so they gave out a couple of addresses of abandoned homes. Stupid, I know, right? But then I'm left asking this question. Who the hell is that woman with the dogs then? I have no idea. When I think back to how hate-filled her face was, it gives me the shivers. Hence, my resignation from my newspaper job. I am working until the end of the month, and I hope that I don't get sent anywhere near the scissor woman's house. And I only have a few more days of work left.
Last winter, my girlfriend and I had a huge argument while we were driving home late night in the mountainside. She kicked me out of the car and left me there. I thought that she'd come back soon, but she didn't. And to top it off, I realized I left my phone in her car. It was the dead of night, not a single car passed by, so the only option I had was to walk home. I was so annoyed. As I knew where I was on the mountainside, I decided to use a shortcut instead of the road my girlfriend and I drove up on. The grass was long on this road, but I could tell that a car had driven down here recently. Some of the grass was flat. This shortcut probably doesn't get used so much, so I found it a bit strange. It was a hard walk. I was cold and frightened. I wanted to quit. It was horrible. It was late at night and the hillside was so dark, I couldn't really see where I was walking. Then I saw a light. A small family car was approaching. It was behind me. Its bright light shining past me. The car's headlights were warm on my back. Was it running out of gas? Well, whatever. For the time being, I thought I'd at least ask to borrow their phone. I stepped into the middle of the grass road and called out, excuse me. I regretted this idea almost instantly. Without thought, I had plunged myself into potential danger. I had no idea who was in the car or what they were doing in the mountain woods so late at night. "What's wrong?" a woman's voice called out from the car. I explained the situation and I asked if I could borrow her phone. "We're out of the service area," she replied very calmly. With that said, I decided that I wanted to get the hell away from her. "Well, I better get going then," I said while I turned to leave. "Please help me." By saying these few words, it ensured my escape was impossible. "Help me dig a hole. If you help me, just for a moment, after we're done, I'll take you anywhere you want to go." As she said this, her right hand was idly making scooping gestures above her head, as if to cover it. Swinging her hand in that pendulum style made me wonder if I were to refuse, what might happen. I frantically dug a hole with the shovel she supplied. While I was digging, the woman watched and talked to me. I can't remember most of the conversation. Doesn't make any difference now. She seemed to like talking. She was asking me all kinds of questions about myself. I thought it would be a bad idea to give her the correct answers, so I just made them up as I went along. Finally, I finished digging the hole. She went to her car and brought back a bag. I thought I was about to see a corpse, but I was wrong. The bag was overflowing with hair. Too much hair for one person. Are you a hairdresser?" I asked nervously. There was no reply. just silence. It was terrifying. She brought lots of items from the car and threw them into the hole that I had dug. There were children's toys, clothes, etc. The last item was a cooler. I was terrified that there might be something in there. A child. My heart started pounding in my chest. By the end of it all, I didn't know what to think. She gave me a ride home, as promised, and it was finished. I began to forget about the incident over time, but this year, I found a paper bag in front of my house. I looked inside, and it was full of hair. I remembered the incident on the mountain and wondered if this could be a coincidence. Surely not. It had to be related. I decided to tell my good friend about the situation, and my story certainly sparked his curiosity. "Well, let's go there and dig up what you two buried," he asked. "To be honest, I want nothing to do with those bags of hair," I replied. But he said, "Why don't you just tell me where the place is then, and I'll go do it myself?" And he kept asking and talking about it at work, again and again. It got to the point where I ended up going with him. I didn't want to though, but I felt he shouldn't go alone. One day after work, we headed towards the mountains, and he decided to invite another work friend too. Us three drove up the mountain road. There was a chain sectioning off the grass road I had walked down, and my friend got out of the car and unhooked it. The grass had grown a lot since last year. It bent beneath the wheels of the car. It was like we were surfing. I couldn't quite remember where the hole was, since it had overgrown now. I thought because of this, my friends would just give up searching for the hole. Nope. So I thought I'd just say, "Oh, here's the hole," in the hope of us digging there, finding nothing, and then we would all go home and it would all be over. But then it occurred to me that anyone would be able to notice the difference between a place that had been dug up. The grass would obviously be shorter, and the soil would probably be a different color too. "Here it is," my friend said with glee. "Park up, shine the headlights in this direction. Let's dig it up, fast," my friend shouted. I wanted to go home quickly, so I didn't protest. I just helped them. With us three men digging, we were able to unearth the things that the woman had thrown away quite quickly. When I helped her bury all that stuff from her car, it was dark and I couldn't see it very well. There were a lot more things than I could remember in the hole. And there was the thing I was the most worried about. The cooler box. My friend wrenched it open. Black water splashed out. My friend dropped it, and all the black water sloshed out into the grass. "What the hell?" my friend said. "I was expecting a body," my friend's friend said. "This isn't a novel, this is reality," I told him. We filled in the hole and went back down the mountain. On the way back, my friend suddenly started to scream and shout about his hand. He said it felt as if his hand was burning. When he opened the cooler, that black water splashed on his hand. We rushed him to the closest hospital. We got his hand examined and the doctor told us that he had suffered a corrosive burn. He got treated for it and we were all relieved. But in the end, I still don't have the answer of why those things were buried out there in the mountains. The mystery remains a mystery. Nothing was resolved. I guess that's the end of it. I hope so.
My hometown is surrounded by mountains. I spent many happy years playing with my friends in those mountains, building bases, hide and seek, you know the type of thing. The thing I enjoyed doing the most was exploring. Those mountains felt as if they were ours. One afternoon, my friend had grown a little bored of the standard forest trails. We wanted a little more adventure, so we decided to go off the beaten path. A decision we didn't know at that time could have been life-altering or even life-ending. We wanted to walk where others hadn't, so we headed deeper into the mountainous woods. There were a few of us, and it was late in the summer. The trees provided a lot of shade, so it felt cooler than it was. Even as young as I was back then, I knew the risk we were taking, so I brought something along to help us not get lost. I lifted this long spindle of string from the art room at my school. I tied the end to a tree close to the forest trail so that we would be able to find our way back. It felt like a foolproof idea at that time. The ground was really uneven off the trail. It was littered with stones and dead tree limbs. We didn't mind it really because it made us feel as if we were on an expedition. We were out in the elements, and there was nothing but the sounds of our labored breath and the distant trill of insects. It was amazing. After walking for about 10 or 15 minutes, we came across a small hill. We climbed the hill, and when we got down the other side, it opened out into a kind of clearing. I distinctly remember a big rock there. We figured that this would be a great place to take 5 and drink some water. One of my friends brought along some candy, so we were tearing into that. While we were taking a break, I noticed something strange. I almost missed it, but once I spotted it, I had to just go over and take a closer look. There was a toy laying on the forest floor. It was a toy for kids a little younger than us. We were in the 4th grade at that time. And once I announced my discovery to my friends, they all came over to take a look, and our expedition turned into an investigation. It wasn't just the one toy. There were others. Hot wheel cars, someone found a doll, and fear crept up on me. Seeing these objects in a place where they shouldn't be really frightened me. Maybe it was because at that age, my toys meant the world to me, and I would never leave them laying around, especially not in the forest. I was worried that something had happened. We all stood around puzzled until one of my friends yelled out to us. He was pointing at something a little outside of the clearing, and we all raced over to look at what he was pointing at. This is where things might become a little difficult to explain. There was a kind of altar constructed of clay-like mud. It was the weirdest thing. It was definitely a human construction, and it didn't look natural at all. In this kind of altar construction was a hollowed-out section, and in that section was an object. I couldn't make out what it was at first, but it looked like a photo. Well, we just had to find out what that photo was. The photo was sturdy, and it looked as if it had been out there for a while. The photo was of a girl. It looked as if it was a commemorative photo, like the one you might see at a graveside. The photo looked as if it had been snatched right out of the cemetery. The forest around us, which was our background for adventure, took on a different vibe. It seemed as if we were somewhere we shouldn't be. It seemed as if all the calmness in our day had gone. I felt as if someone could be out there with us, watching us. And all of a sudden, I didn't want to be off the beaten path anymore. There was something so illogical about what we were looking at. The toys, the photo, the weird mud construction. It was just wrong. I wanted to run, and one quick glance at my friends' faces told me that they were on the same page as me. We followed the string back to the trail, and we weren't in the mood to talk anymore. I didn't feel like myself until I got out of those mountains. And since that day, I never played off the trail. I still have a general idea of how to get to the clearing where we found that weird altar, but I have no interest in returning. My mind tortures me with questions that I cannot answer. Why was the photo there? in such a remote location? And the toys, was it some kind of grisly memento of something that happened to the girl in the photo? Or were we looking at some felon's trophies? The other thought that comes to mind is that perhaps the family who lost that girl couldn't afford a burial, and they just created their own memorial site in an isolated location where they could mourn without disturbance. If that's the case, then it's heartbreaking. It didn't make sense though. Nothing about what I saw that day all those years ago made sense. And this experience lives with me. And here's the riddle for this video. Hey everyone, this is your creepy sister. Thank you so much for watching the video. I do hope you enjoyed it. Also, don't forget to leave a like and a comment. It really helps the channel out. A big shout out to both my channel members and Patreon members. Thank you so much for taking your support to the next level. You guys are great. And again, to everyone, stay scared because your fear feeds me.